Hey everyone, welcome to the Industry Show. I'm your host Nitin Bajaj, and joining me today is Neeru Khosla. Neeru, welcome on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Nathan. Um, it's going to be fun.
Pleasure is all ours, and really looking forward to this. So, tell us who's Neeru.
Ooh, who is Nehru is kind of a difficult thing to define because I keep changing, or I think I keep changing. As you know, I'm 65 years old, and I remember who I was as a little girl. Remember what I was in, elementary school versus high school, college, and now here. So I think I'm someone who redefines myself constantly.
Yes,
I may look the same externally, of course, older, but that's a different issue. But I'm a caring and very empathetic person, and I'm very hungry to learn. I learn everything I can, always trying to figure out what I don't know. That's
that
that's me.
I think that curiosity and the questions you ask really defines you and shapes you, and that's the best place to be in.
Right, right. And hopefully we kind of help our children. We have 4 children do the same, and pretty much they do. That's how they live too.
That's beautiful. Tell us what is CK12.
Well, the CK12 is basically the result of my life, my children's life, the difference in what I received. And we were in England when I was 10 years old. And, uh, and then I went back, we went back to India. So for us, that experience was quite life changing. And then I came here and had 4 children. And so CK12 is really the result of all those things culminating. Uh, it's a place where I believe every child, any child actually, that we don't take care and is left out of the education, the access, and you know the ability to learn is criminal. We need to take care of all children. So CK12 is my attempt to do that, to make sure every child can get a quality education, at least starting with quality content. And so that's what we've been trying to build. And to how do you scale it? I mean, schools are usually small, you can only impact so many people. Public education was supposed to be scalable,
Yes.
but it's kind of come to its, the S curve. It's kind of reached its potential, the maximum. Now people are starting to fail in that system. So we have to reimagine that system. So CK12 is taking that system and continuing to, uh, kind of really figuring out how children learn and giving them that opportunity wherever they might be. So it is the digitization, it is
Right.
the digital version of what it happens in education in a static classroom. And it's about helping the teacher.
Right.
We can help be assistant to the teacher because teachers can't, in the moment, kind of figure out what the student needs and need to think about things. So we can be there. Computers and machine learning and all these things can be there to help the teacher. That's exactly what we're trying to do. And we started with teachers because we believed, especially for K-12, most kids don't know what to do next. So we had to build something that, with the knowledge pathways, how things relate to each other, math to math, science to science, and the interdisciplinary connection of all that. And so we've built that platform and that system. And, we built it with teachers. Now we're building it with machine learning and AI and kind of coming up with that solution. So the ideal customer really is a student, but K-12 young kids needs an adult mentor.
Yes.
So the teacher is always in the loop.
Right. Makes sense. Give us a give us a sense of the size and scale. You talked about impact at and amplifying what the school system has not been able to scale to.
Yeah. So let me, since we started in 2007,
Mhm.
we had to reimagine what a textbook material, what would the student really need, because they don't even have textbook, particularly in the US. I mean, I went to India, and Dr. Kalam, the president at that point, told me in 1993 or something like that, and he told me, um, you know, we we give content to our students, it's pennies, but in the US it's billions of dollars,
Yes.
and it's kind of, it's unheard of. I was quite disappointed. So when we started, we were building this thing, and K-12 schools didn't have computers or even broadband, right? So
Right.
we said, okay, we'll be patient. We'll look at it like a long-term project. And we started the project with, um, waiting to see what happens. And we kind of, by 2012, classrooms started getting computer devices and broadband, and yet the teachers weren't, trained on how to use it. So we started, providing the training for the teachers to be able to use the stuff. So, but that time, our usage was very, very little, almost a little like flatline. Now we could have given up and said, hey, no. Long-term thinking got us to, okay, we'll keep building this, making it better and better and better. From 2015 or so, we started growing 30% a year.
Mm.
Last year, we had 40 million users.
Wow.
Okay.
That's a
And
phenomenal.
so, you know, but the thing is, since we are free,
Yeah.
people kind of ask the question, but can free be quality?
Right.
That's a commitment,
Yes.
right? So, it was when I gave my kids this education. I was a molecular biologist by trade. And before I had my kids, I was doing research at Stanford on oncogenes. And I kind of said, when I got pregnant with my first child, I said, no, radioactivity,
Yeah.
pregnancy. So there was no choice.
Right.
So I dropped that and um, got into education. And I went back at the age of 50 to figure out, to Stanford to get another degree in education, to figure out, you know, what is the issue with education? And that's when I started asking, why can't we give a quality education to all children? Why do we just stop at memorization and think that we've given them all the tools they need to, you know, carry on?
Yeah. That's really amazing. So, just to get a sense for this, the 40 million students, are they
Students and teachers.
and teachers, this is all primarily in the US?
No, 70%, 65 to 70% are in the US,
Okay.
and the rest are in Philippines, India,
Okay.
other countries. Mexico, Spanish-speaking countries are really starting to take off. So yes, we even have CBSE content
Hmm.
on our website. Um, One of the things we do believe in is not just providing one way of learning, whether it's video or text. We provide multimodality. We have interactives. We have adaptive practice, which we built over the years. And the adaptive practice helps the student to kind of figure out, it helps us and the students to figure out where they are
Yes.
and what they're missing. We can give them that information. And
Those are some amazing numbers. And how many languages is this content in?
well, we have English mostly.
Right.
We have Spanish,
Mm-hmm.
and there are some other, countries. Chile's done, Brazil's done some translation. Germans have done some translations. Koreans have done some, so it depends on, part of it is that we ourselves did not start doing the translations.
Right.
We said anyone who wants to help us can
Come.
help us. We have the content, we can help you. We have the templates. So anybody who's interested in different languages,
Mhm.
we can work with you to make that available.
Right. I remember back in the day when TED launched, they had a similar approach.
Yeah.
They started primarily with English, and then volunteers stepped up and
Yes.
started doing
It's very
translation.
hard to do different languages.
Yes,
We were hoping Google Translate would get better and better, but it's all right. But it still doesn't pick up
true.
the emotion.
Nuances and
Yeah,
yes, so true.
yeah.
So as we're talking about this you know magnanimity of the challenge that you're looking at, I want to pose the question instead of just trying to assume. What is the biggest challenge you're facing?
Well, I would say there are probably uh, three big challenges. The first biggest challenge is the mindset.
Hmm.
And I'm not talking about mindset, fixed mindset or anything.
Right.
It's just that it's very hard to change people's mindset out of the old system
Yes,
to bring it into the new system,
yes.
right? And if you're going to operate on the old system,
Hmm.
you're always going to stay in that old mindset, and you're going to try to bring everything to your mindset, to the way you think that it should be, right? When tools change, if those tools, if you don't take avail of those new capabilities,
Yeah.
you're never going to advance. You're going to stay where you are. So the number one issues is really getting the teachers to see what's capable. Because if you're thinking about assessment in standardized ways, that assessment is always going to measure
Right.
from where it started.
Hmm.
So that's the number one. How do I use this? What information can I get? And how, so that's a long-term thinking to change that mindset. Number two mindset is always political, right? The regulation, the rule, and K-12 in particular it's a very difficult thing to go. I mean, I kind of cringe when I think about a young kid coming to our website. We're a nonprofit,
Hmm.
and we don't kind of monetize or nothing. We are
Yeah.
free for everything. So we tried. I think about this young kid, under 13 kid, who's gung-ho about learning, comes to our site and we go, stop, time out. You can't learn here, right, unless you go get your parents permission. I understand privacy, we committed to that.
Yes.
We signed with any district, any state, any whatever to make that happen. But it's just unbelievable to me that a student who's eager to learn, we're saying no to.
We're building these walls under
Yes,
the pretext of a lot of the other things
yes,
and not allowing them to get to feed their curiosity.
yeah. And the third thing is that, it has to do with the system, system thinking, which is this thing, if it's free, can't be quality. How is it going to sustain itself?
Mhm.
That was the first question I would get when I started this, when I presented. Well, is this thing going to be around? Well, publishers aren't around either, right? They're all getting this time when publishers are going under, and it's very hard to maintain even a for-profit model on this. And access to education should be a human right, right? We should all be committed to that, because without that, imagine the questions we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
Am I going to get COVID if I sneeze, or am I going to get, all those different
Yes.
things that we can't believe. If you don't have education, if you cannot even take part
Hmm.
in the economy, you know, the world of economy, how are you going to sustain? You're going to not have that chance. We've got to give that chance to all students. Doesn't matter. Free doesn't matter. It's garbage,
Yes.
right? Even the content that publishers were providing had hundreds of thousands of mistakes, right? And we keep getting better because we fix our mistakes,
Right.
and we can personalize to each kid. That's the kind of work that we can do that can help in getting the students what they really need.
Hmm.
And we are working on all that. Um, so it's just these things become pretty monumental when they are, and the constant change that also happens. Can I trust this? Is the standards changing? It doesn't happen too much in India,
Hmm.
but I mean, in India and in most of Asian countries, parents believe that education is the number one tool we can give our children.
Hmm.
And we all got it.
Yes.
My parents, my dad was a accounts officer. Most of his money went towards getting us a good education. And I think it makes a difference.
Yes.
Does make a difference. So challenges are, these are system challenges, these are mindset challenges, and moving from the old to new,
Right.
it's always a challenge.
So true. Let me look at the other side, the bright side. Right. I believe the more challenging something, the bigger the opportunity. Right. What is that opportunity you are targeting?
So the opportunity right now is a few years back, if you had asked me where's CK12 going, I would have never been able to tell you, well, we are going to be doing this,
Right.
which means because technology is moving so fast, we don't even know what tools we are going to be able to count on tomorrow or a year from today or
Hmm.
2 or 5. So we keep waiting and seeing and seeing. So we started with digitized content, the customizable nature, the ability to customize it to your needs, and adaptiveness, interactiveness, simulations. You have great simulations for physics and chemistry. Working on biology, get there sometime. And to really understand how things visually change. So a few years back, I would have never said that we could be able to use machine learning or artificial intelligence in ways. Today, we're developing a AI tutor, and we've done a lot of work on that, particularly in science, and it's on our website. It's called Flexi,
Hmm.
and it can interact with the students and help them with whatever questions they have. And the questions that we get from these students are incredible. You know,
Can imagine.
that's what we should be teaching to. What are they curious about? Not just jamming down. I mean, there has to be some level of, uh,
Sure.
continuous learning.
Right.
But, we also have to take into account, can they, through their passion, through their curiosity, learn things exactly, learn to write, learn to communicate, learn to compute, learn to, numeracy, literacy, all that. And we can do that. We can do
Yeah,
that.
I think there are some foundational aspects that we
Yes,
need to provide,
yes,
but then once we've given that, we need to let them find their own path, right?
absolutely. And that's what we do. We started with foundation. K-12 is foundational. But at what point does it become beyond
Right.
foundational, even in K-12? Right? How does that continuum, at some point I want to do the continuum, and we are going towards that. The tutor to help in whatever they need. The teachers will always be in the loop,
Hmm.
okay? Because machines aren't going to get where we need them to be completely independent. They need humans always.
Yes.
And so, um, yeah,
It's really exciting.
yeah, we've got big plans. So I don't exactly know, but whatever we can make avail of as technology changes, we incorporate it.
Yes.
You know,
And that's the best approach, right?
it is the best approach.
We adapt, we keep
Yeah,
an eye on moving forward in the right direction,
that's right.
and we take advantage of the resources that are available at that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's exactly what we do. and continue and will continue to do.
Niru, in terms of the journey so far, it's been about 14 years or so, and it could also include some of your other experiences. Is there a lesson learned or a success story that you're proud of that you would like to share?
I was not a technologist,
Mhm.
right? Um, it's something that I would never even have thought that I would dare to even, you know, be involved in, right? I'll tell you something. When we got married, my husband said, "Hey, we just, came here maybe a few years." He was like, "Do you want to try this?" And I would say, "Sure," because he said you can do it. And so he said, "Hey, would you like to try jumping out of a plane in a parachute?" Oh my God, there was a program that trained you for a weekend, and then it culminated in you going up, tens of thousands of
And it
feet.
going from a
And
simulation to the real thing.
yeah, no, you practice. It wasn't even a simulation. You actually practice jumping and falling. So we go up there, and I'm sitting on the side of the plane, with all dressed up with the parachute and
Yeah.
stuff. And I looked down when it was my turn, and my husband sat behind me, and I'm going, I swear to God, even to this day, I believe someone pushed me off that plane. Terrified. Okay. And once the chute opened, it was the most amazing thing, right?
Yes.
Similarly, when I started this, we started thinking about trying CK12, my co-founder, Morgan Powell, had
Mhm.
just finished um, building a company. Kleiner Perkin funded him for $150 million. So, Vinod said, why don't you talk to him? He'll be quite good to do this, and he can run this and do it. So I went to talk to him, and Morgan said, I'll do this as a technologist, but only with you. Now,
Nice.
that was my parachute moment, okay? Because I don't know about technology.
Yes.
I've been living in fear of failure. And it just keeps stopping me because every time I don't let jump
Yeah.
off that plane, I don't think about what I can do, what I cannot do. Every time, even whitewater rafting, said, let's go white Zambezi. I mean, it's the biggest rapids and all that. And there I am sitting. I don't even like to swim too much. So I think it just helped me kind of, but the fear of fear is the worst thing that you can let stop you, and you don't even know what you're capable of. And
So
it
true.
still surfaces. It still surfaces all the time. It doesn't go away. But then every time you let go, you feel amazed.
And that's a very insightful thing. I would imagine, not that I've given it too much thought before, but one would think that once you have overcome the fear, you've overcome it in general terms. But that's not really true, right? At each point, at each step, we go back to, I guess the small brain
Yes,
kicks in.
yes. And it's like the situation and the environment, the situation, the rules, the hurdles change.
Yes.
And each one of those hurdles and each one of those things kind of go, well, I don't know that. How am I going to do this? So you have to go back to square one,
Yes.
which starts with fear. Do I really want to do that? And COVID actually,
Yes.
not only me, COVID's brought this up to so many people. I was reading a report that 48% of tech, workers are thinking about changing their jobs or are changing their jobs.
Yeah.
I think it was a McKinsey report, and it's unbelievable to me that, don't- I mean, all of us, kind of think about, well, once I'm overcome fear, you've overcome that fear for that,
Yes.
right? Things change. You're going to, I don't know. That's me. That's how you know, my son goes, Mom, you've got 40 million users. People would kill to get that kind of.
Yes.
But I just don't, I know what if I fail?
As long as
So
you use it for, motivation and for the right things, it's good to have. But like you said, sometimes it does stop us from achieving our potential. And
it always stops us from,
yes.
wasn't it Michael Jordan who said,
Hmm.
for every shot I don't take,
Yes.
I miss,
Yes.
right?
So true. Well, it does set us up for the next section, which is the one line life lessons. But I'm curious about, you said you believe someone pushed you. Did you ever find out if someone did push you?
Because, when you're sitting on the side of the plane, you see the person who's gone before you, and all you see is this frightened face with the,
Yes.
you know, and you're going, oh shit, what the heck, right? Am I
What did I
doing?
sign up for?
Well, actually, then later I thought about it. As you fall, you're trained to count out loud,
Yes.
101, 102, so you can tell the time
Hmm.
before the chute opens. But when I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, oh God. By the way, I banned my husband from parachuting ever again. After we had kids, I said, no, you're not doing that.
Wow, that's a good thing. Okay. So, one line life lessons.
Uh, I think the number one thing that I live by, actually, it came to me because my mother,
Hmm.
at the age of 50 something, decided to learn to drive in India.
Wow.
Okay. But of course, she learned, but she never really continued it. But, and somehow I found that really age is no barrier.
Hmm.
When I went back to school to learn at the age of 50,
Yes.
I felt so dumb because everyone around me at Stanford, those students are, just really smart.
Hmm.
And I had been out of college for a long time. But I'm telling you, age is no barrier. That's the thing you let yourself stop.
Yes.
There are certain things, physical things that you may not be able to do at, certain ages, but old people are running marathon, old people are doing all kind of things.
Hmm.
It's just a matter of your mindset right there.
True. Very true.
Um, and I also realize life is long, but it goes by really fast,
That is so beautiful.
right? It really does go back. When I think about, I look at myself and I go, 65. But I was, just yesterday,
So true.
right?
Yes.
Um, I think, you know, I said something about fear.
Hmm.
And fear is really, fear is really what gets in the way,
Yes.
right? We really do have to get past that.
Hmm.
The other thing is, because I've seen many changes from our life where I came from a very, very low middle class or middle class
Hmm.
family. And then we went to England and saw a completely different side of world, and came back and got really good education, got to, you know, uh, that we saw the world, we saw all kind of things. So another thing about life is that life is not a single story,
Yes.
right? It hinges on many complex stories. It's a culmination or coming together of all these. And if you can remember those and reflect on them, reflection is another big thing.
Yes.
Without that, you know, it's not going to change.
Yeah.
You're going to keep applying the old rules to your new life. You're
Yes.
not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
You'll be in that loop.
Yes.
Um, I don't know if I gave you enough.
These are some amazing, and what we love about these one-line life lessons is it, they're very simple, but they're profound.
Yeah.
And someone who adopts some of these or one of these, it is life-changing.
Yes.
Reflection,
Yeah.
it's just one word. But if you're not doing that, you're just rinse and repeat, right? You're just expecting that this time around in this movie, the train is going to have a different outcome, but it's not.
Yeah. It's just like you keep applying what you know from the old rules to. So when you think about the life we had in India and we apply the same life rules in
Not going to
in
work.
London or the US or wherever, right? eh, You have to keep reinventing yourself.
Hmm.
Reinvention is really, really key.
The one thing you said about the mindset, right? You can't apply the, you can't have a one of those really old school automobiles and expect that to run like a, something that's built in 22.
Yeah.
Uh, it's not going to work.
I was reading this book about inventions, and there was a picture, a very old picture. It was about a steam engine,
Hmm.
and it had buggies
Yes.
behind it,
Hmm.
right? And uh, so the people who could pay more got to sit in the buggies.
Yes.
People who wanted cheap tickets got to sit on top of the
Oh,
buggies,
yes.
right? And so these were coal. This was a coal
Hmm.
buggy. So the coal, I mean, the smoke from
So,
there would come
yeah.
all over these kids. I mean, all the people sitting on top.
Yes.
And and that is how world changes. Kind of that was painful.
Yes.
So you knew you had to fix that, right? So invention has really been the necessities of humans' needs.
True.
Or I think I'm getting my words mixed up. But anyways,
Was I
um,
think it says necessity is the mother of invention.
mother of all inventions.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and it's true, right? Even today, the invention, and we're always afraid of the new.
Hmm. Yeah.
You know,
Change is not easy. But then also at the same time, going back to what you were saying, if COVID had happened 10
yeah,
years ago, it would have been so much more painful without the technology, without the ability to access school or programs online, right? It would be
yeah. I mean, actually, which brings me to another one. I mean, when we started, I used to say, "Hey, if we're gonna move everything onto computers,
yes,
what happens if the electricity goes?
right,
What are we gonna do?" But I never thought that I would be asking the questions, or we'd be asking the question, what happens if there are no schools?
yes,
What are we going to do then? And sure enough, the unseen, unknown can become, you know, um, a
yeah,
reality,
yes,
right? Here we are struggling with it. And what are we doing? We probably would have had this interview in person,
yeah.
right?
Which, by the way, would have been great.
I know. I'm dying for real human,
Yes,
you know, uh, kind of, yeah,
but yeah, hopefully, it looks like we're getting there, right? Things are
yeah.
getting better, and yeah,
I was amazed that we could create everyone is that we could create these vaccinations so soon.
yes,
And on top of that, we use the same mRNA technology to
hmm,
finally come up with malaria vaccine,
yes,
right? Which
phenomenal,
we've tried for years I mean,
yes,
decades to
yes,
try and eliminate, but we had oral medicine only. But now it's going to be exciting to see. Uh, maybe we'll get rid of malaria too in the same. But other things will come up.
Sure, but one thing this reaffirms is when we are put to a test, when we are pushed in a corner, we
Yeah,
have no choice but to fight back, and
right.
we come back stronger.
Yes, yes. And that's when innovation happens at the edge, right? And
Yes,
it's those edges that push us.
yes,
Sometimes we take the wrong paths, but that's experimentation.
yeah.
It is about experimenting, reflecting, and revising, right?
I
That's
think we have to balance the winning with the learning.
yes. Yeah. It's I don't know. It's been from what I remember where we were, when we've gone through our lives, and we kind of look back and look at where we are today. It is pretty amazing.
Yes.
Pretty amazing. We can fill planes full of oxygen tanks
Hmm.
and fly them across to India.
True.
Never would have thought that. You know, it's just like, okay, we got to do something. So my husband said, "Oh, what can we do?" I said, you'll figure it out. And
Hmm.
here we are shipping plane worth full of oxygen tanks.
Just phenomenal.
Phenomenal. And we have people who can help, you know, make that change in India.
So true.
We're all coming together. We are in that position where we can make a difference
Hmm.
in our own country. So it's actually it's a very proud moment for all of us.
Yes.
You know,
And
the
thank
Indians
you
are
once again for doing this, because I know you said when you can make a difference, but the key is you are making a difference, right? A lot of other people can, and for valid reasons or whatever drives them, they don't, right?
yeah.
Or they're unable to. But the fact is, when you can, you must, and you
Well,
are
you
doing that.
can't judge people. They have their own reasons for whatever reason.
The great
Fear of
thing is you
fear.
are helping, right?
What's
And
that?
I said the great thing is you are helping, and you're making a difference,
Yeah.
and that's amazing.
I hope you're making a difference.
Oh, you are. You know that.
We'll see. Well, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you so much, Nero. It was a great pleasure to have you, and would love to have a follow up on this, hopefully in person, pretty soon.
Sure. Let me know.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Industry Show. I'm your host Nitin Bajaj, and joining me today is Sumantra Sengupta. Sumantra, welcome on the show.
Thanks for having me, Nitin. It's good to see you. And it's good that we've stayed in touch for it's been 14 years, 13 or 14 years.
It
So
has
it's
been.
always good to stay connected.
Likewise, and it's our pleasure to have you here.
Thank
So
you.
let's get started with who is Sumantra?
Yeah, that's it. I wish I could I'll go through a simple biography because I've listened to a few other folks. In my heart, I guess I've always been a quant, and over my career, I started, I've been in the US for just around 33 years. Did grow up in India, grew up in Delhi, and I did spend 2 years in Bombay, even though I tried to avoid mentioning that because those of us who grew up in Delhi probably
Yes.
never adjust to Bombay, right? I mean, you're from Bombay. But I was in Xavier's Bombay for a couple of years. And then I came here, wanted to study math, applied math. So I got my first few degrees in applied math and then had a bit of an aha moment where I realized that that was probably not my passion, much as I enjoyed quant. So then I pivoted to B school and went and got my master's and then my doctorate in somewhat of quantitative side of business, and then just continued my career more as I would say a lifelong learner, and then over the years have just been more of a business problem solver, and that's what I continue to do about 27 years in my career now.
And I know you've had a ball and adventure through that. So tell us about EVM Partners.
EVM Partners is officially this month in its 12th year of operation.
On the team.
Uh, yeah, it's, and I have to, I'll say I'm surprised that I've kept it going. It's a firm I co-founded after I had spent time with probably 3 or 4 different mega branded firms where I was a partner, vice president. And then I realized that a couple of things that I always just wanted to work more for myself than for other folks. And I wanted to really work on specific type of business problems. And so I launched the firm, and the firm, we do work in really 2 major segments. The traditional advisory segment, and their clients more often than not come to us when they're having significant cost reduction needs, or if they are trying to figure out how to grow the top line in more of a global sense. So that's one side of the business. And then over the years, we've done a fair amount of turnaround and restructuring, which has also then led to me taking on several, probably 3 different interim CEO president roles as the work continued, where the client would ask you to continue to see the entire turnaround and restructuring. So those are probably the 2 segments of business. We've been fortunate. We've served clients, of course, in the US, in Middle East, North Africa, both Eastern and Western Europe. And I was fortunate to also do some work in Asia Pacific, just under the EVM umbrella. And today morning, I was counting how many distinct logos we have served. And I kind of counted up to 24, and then I stopped. Wow. So we've served about 24 logos over the years, some over multiple years, some on small projects, but it's been about 24 different logos that we've served. So I thank everybody above me for the journey we've had so far.
That's really awesome. And I know serving a different set of clientele, pretty global set of customers across the, as you would say, the food chain, right? I'm curious to know, what's the biggest challenge you've faced?
Biggest challenge, I'll break it into its biggest challenge in terms of project that I took on.
Sure.
Global multinational agriculture company is owned by one of the royal families in the Middle East. Amazing opportunity that allowed me to take a business that was set up with joint ventures all over the world to make it a global brand, over $1 billion. I ended up running that company for as the interim president for about 2.5, was engaged with them even at the board level after that, traveled almost 200 nights a year globally, because we were setting up a business that was based on food security all over the world. And much as it was not good for work-life balance, I will tell you it was probably the most fun I've had professionally, because there was something happening in some part of the world. I had 11 operating units in some part of the world, and I was always based in LA. So that was quite a rewarding. I mean, every project is rewarding, I have to say that, right? However, if I had to point to one project that probably stretched a lot of the skills that I had accumulated over the years, that one did. Professionally these days, I think the biggest challenge that we face as a boutique firm, right? Because that's what I've always been. I've always remained a very high touch, high client service-based boutique firm, um, is the bigger firms, there's a fight that goes on in terms of them creeping more down the value chain, us creeping up the value chain. They obviously have a bigger bench, a bigger brand, especially because I often go up against the very established brands, both at the strategy level as well as the former Big Four. I'm former Big Four as well. Um, Recruiting and retaining talent is very, very challenging, especially these days, because everybody wants that shiny rubber stamp object on the other side, right? And for us, it's more, what kind of work are you going to be doing? Now, it's easy for me to say that now because I built my career on the backs of those brands. So I can fully understand what the younger group of people are going through. But for a smaller firm like us, that continues to be a bit of a challenge.
Makes sense. And despite what one would have thought, COVID has only accelerated that challenge, I would imagine.
Yeah, COVID actually has, last year, when, there was a time when everybody just came to a standstill, right around March timeframe. And then people started figuring out how to go about whatever is the new norm. I don't even know what the new norm is, but the talent war didn't become any easier. It actually became tougher. I was chatting with somebody recently where they said they did a LinkedIn post and they got 600 applicants. And I was like, well, that's good, but how many of them were truly qualified applicants versus people just, and so I think the war for good talent has always been there. And with COVID, there was a group of people that said, it's best not to jump ship at this point.
Yes.
Because longevity sometimes can help. So why not see this through as much as we can? So that did, make an impact.
Yes. You mentioned about the challenges of kind of starting to hit as you're going up the value chain, hitting the big fours and other companies with deeper pockets, and then on this other end, the war for talent. In terms of, obviously, as you do these things, as you go out and get bigger and better clients, I'm guessing there is also a wide opportunity or set of opportunities that are opening up for you. Can you tell us about maybe the big one?
Yeah, for us, given, I own the firm along with my wife. Actually, she owns the firm. I just happen to thing. But what we have decided is, we stay close to our core, and I grew up in effectively what would be called the products industry sector. So any company that makes, moves, or sells a product and then an associated service, right? That's the space we play in. And that's a big space, food and beverage, durables, ag, retail, e-commerce, life sciences. So there's a lot of room in that. For us, given we have served clients that have gone in terms of ownership, they have ranged from family-owned, private equity-backed, and even venture-backed, and of course, public companies. So we've kind of served the gamut. And in terms of what we are looking forward, going forward, and especially in, I would say the next 12 to 24 months, we see a lot of activity in what I would call the upper mid-market. Think of it as, I think somebody recently said, how about the Russell 2000? I think that's an interesting measure. I hadn't quite thought about it as, everybody talks about the Fortune 100, Fortune 1000, but then there is those gazelles, the ones who are going to be the next set. And I think Russell 2000, at least in the US, does cover an interesting segment for us. So that's, kind of the slice. The mix of projects will probably continue to be the same. Lately, we have picked up some work in ESG space, the environmental sustainable supply chain. I wrote my fifth book on risk management last year. It was based on an article that I wrote in August or July of last year. Um, and people are beginning to talk about risk management or risk adjusted supply chains. They're trying to understand what it really means to have a supply chain that should have risk levers built into it, or risk management levers. So these are some, I would say they are kind of some nice offshoots of work that we have always done. And in the industry space that, at least me and some of my colleagues, we know quite well.
Yes. And I think it's maybe you can comment a little bit on this in terms of, we're kind of getting in that era of super specialization, right? And this plays to your strengths.
So, I grew up as a specialist before I became a generalist.
Yes.
Right? I grew up in what is today affectionately called supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
When I started doing it, we didn't really have the term supply chain. You had procurement, logistics, manufacturing, customer service, and then over time we started, knitting the whole thing together. So I was always known as the operations or the supply chain, person. And then over the years, I moved into becoming more the industry person, but with always my base has always been that supply chain. So so the deep specialization has always worked well for us. And that's how we tend to win. We tend to win, we tend to win on three levers. One is very, very strong element of customer service. Second, domain expertise. I'm just a huge believer that whatever domain you're going to go after, in our case, it's the products industry vertical and growth, efficiency, and management, you must be able to walk in and people have to say, okay, they've been there, they've done that, and that's why. And then the third is, if you say you're going to deliver something, deliver it and over deliver. If you say you're going to position a team X, then let's see how close to X we can stay. And for a boutique like ours, when we say X is who will show up.
Yes.
It's not going to be, X for 10% and then another whole bunch of people for the other. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but for us, we just sell based on the type of problem. And you'll notice one thing I didn't mention was price. Because I know being competitive on price is the norm. That's table stakes. I don't compete on price. And so, I mean, if somebody wants to, take the margin hit, more power to them. There's plenty of other things to hunt for and plenty of people that will want our services for the very fair rates that we charge them. So that's been how we've won.
Yep, makes a lot of sense. If you were to step back and look at your journey so far, is there a kind of a lesson learned or a success story you're really proud of?
I think if I look at somebody that worked with me and has worked with me across I think I met him probably right before I met you. So I've known him for about 15 years, right? I think he always points out that I tend to reinvent myself probably every decade. That doesn't mean I get bored. It just means that if you're not learning and evolving yourself and adapting, then what are the chances that a client will want to adapt and grow with you, right? And we've been fortunate. We've had clients that maybe I haven't done business with them for the entire 12 years I've been with EVM, or I've set up EVM. But the fact is, I stay in touch with my clients on various. So I think the ability to reinvent and not stray too much from the core of what you stand for, but be able to adapt has helped me as I've moved across industries. And in fact, I've written a few articles over the years of comparing industry one to industry two. And those articles have tended to be the most well received, because so often we go so deep in our silo that we forget that there are best practices we can borrow from other industries, right, in the same sector. So I have probably enjoyed that. And I would say, other than that, it's just been, I've just worked with some very good people, people that have mentored me, and now I mentor a whole group of people. That's been very rewarding. And I will say, just over the years, the ability to maintain relationships, has been something I've always enjoyed. I think if I look at the way I built my network and maintained my network, there's people that I think I started working with, say, in 95, 96, that I'm still connected with. And that's what, like 25, 26 years later. And it's just been, for me, that's been very rewarding.
And I can tell you, having been in this relationship for 14 years, it's been very rewarding for me. So I've learned a lot from you, and I've tried to walk in your footsteps and try to reinvent myself. And, and I use the word try very mindfully. So not there.
I would say I have enjoyed watching you do little pivots, and especially the last one that you did, the one you're in right now. Not too many people go down that route, and I'm glad you're doing it. And I wish I had opportunities to do that kind. But I've enjoyed watching how you've pivoted, including going and getting your own doctorate at Pepperdine. Yes. I think when we met, you hadn't quite finished. I think you may have just enrolled. Yes. In your PhD. And so, yeah, we all kind of chart our own course, right?
But it's good to have, as they say, walking on the giants of the shoulders, or the shoulders of the giants, and I'm talking to one of them. So thank you.
You're very kind to say that.
No, it is true, and it had to be said. So let's switch gears a little bit, and since we are already on the topic, talk about you, and please share some one-line life lessons with us.
One-line life lessons. So those are always tough, because they're not, I will share them with you, but they shouldn't be indications of me all the time, right?
Of course.
Because the first one that I always, and I share this with people across, I've spoken about this. There's a statement that I took from, either it was in his book, or I believe it may have been in his autobiography. And Andy Grove, the founder of Intel, he said, "Only the paranoid survive."
Yes.
And it has stayed with me for years. I mean, I forget when he wrote it, when I read it, but I will say that one sentence has resonated with me. Not that I live my life in paranoia, but the fact is, you always have to realize that there is someone else building a better mousetrap.
Yes.
Than you. I mean, that's just the reality of that whole reinvention, right? So that's been something that has always stayed with me. The second one is something that I picked up and I used very effectively as I was globetrotting for helping build the multinational company. I believe Peter Drucker may have said this at some point, where he said, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast."
Yes.
I believe that's, and I might be paraphrasing, but I think that's kind of what he said. And that has been so true. You can have the best laid strategic plan, and if the culture fit is not there, the chances of you executing that are probably actually going to be zero.
Yes.
Right? There's a few others, one I use, sometimes people are not amused when I say it, because especially if I'm saying it to an overzealous CEO. CFOs actually enjoy this when I say it. I always say hope is not a strategy. You know, especially when you when you're sitting there and everybody is dreaming the next unicorn, right? I mean, look, trust me, there is always that unicorn out there, but for every unicorn there are many non-unicorns,
True.
and so we can't have everything being a unicorn, and everything can't be that classic hockey stick, right? Which is, well, we can't sell anything, but then we hope we will just quadruple our revenue in that fourth quarter, right?
Of course.
And I always sit back and I go, wow, man, that is probably going to be a tough one,
Yes.
right? The next one is something that lately I think is true. Not when I first started my career. Um, when I first started my career, um, I've always said, and my one-liner for you is that loyalty is a two-way street.
So true.
If I'm going to expect, when I started my career, a while back, um, you were taught that you had to be loyal to the cause, you had to be loyal to, your firm, and I remember a very senior Ernst & Young partner who recruited me, and then I grew and then became a vice president there because we were sold the year I made it over the finish line, whatever it's that finish line, right? I remember him telling me that, and he had been a 30-year partner. And I asked him, I said, so what's the reason for your success? He said, it's very simple. He said, take care of your family first, take care of your clients second, and you do those properly, the firm will take care of you.
Nice.
He goes, don't ever put the firm's interests ahead of your clients or your family. And a variation of that, I would say, is the fact that loyalty is a two-way street. We often look at resumes, right? I look at resumes, people hop around. Yes, now there is an element of impatience that is in today's generation, but I'm also not sure that element of loyalty, that sense of camaraderie, is really there today. I think it's more a series of transactions, I think. And I'm just using my own experience.
Sure.
I'm sure there'll be others who have been on your show who will say, no, that's not true. We all have our own experiences that teach us, right? So that's something that I've maintained, and particularly maintain now, is that it has to be a two-way street.
Yes.
And then I think the final one is always something I leave people with. It is, and it's probably I may have read it on a bracelet or something. It just says, think different. And I think that has served me quite well. It's just it's fun to, you don't always have to be the naysayer. You don't always have to be the, what do they call it, devil's advocate. That's not. However, you need to be able to go in and take a slightly different perspective, and even if it is just a hypothesis, doesn't mean it has to be true, but at least be able to think different.
Yes.
And I've enjoyed that over the years, and I still do. I still read a lot. In fact, right now I'm reading a book which it's called The Code Breaker. It's the recent one, and then I've got another one lined up already to read. So and every time, and these days I probably I'm more picky about what I read, but when I read it, I still expect to pick up a few nuggets here and there from every book, and that just shapes my thinking. So I think that's probably the last one, is think different.
And that's a powerful one.
I'm sure it's on a bracelet somewhere. If not, yeah, I'm pretty sure that it's on a bracelet, but it's worked.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was a marketing ad campaign that started back when Apple was trying to, come out with a slogan and stuff.
Really?
Yes.
Was it the classic, not the classic Apple ad, right? I mean, there was that classic one from the early 80s, I think.
Yes.
I remember. And It may
I
have
believe
been.
that was the one. I
Was
believe
it?
that was the one. I think so. Yeah, but I'll go back and look. It's
Yeah. Then that's who they gets credit for it.
yes. But
So yeah.
sorry, the one thing we say is, it's not who said these one-liners or who came up with them, right? What's important is who adopted them.
Right.
And if in adopting it, if you made it your own and it made a difference to you, and because it made a difference to you, it made a difference to the lives around you, right? That's really what it's about. So that's why we don't do any attributions on these. We're not trying to create copyright or any of that. It's if this one line has helped you and has the potential to help someone else, that's really what we need, right?
I will say, these are, as I was preparing for this discussion,
Yeah.
there's a few others that I was there, and I was like, if somebody just said, okay, what are the top five? These are probably the ones I would choose. And it's work. Doesn't mean that 2 years from now, if you ask me, it may be the same four with a different one,
Yes.
right?
That
And
goes back to your reinvention, right?
right, absolutely, the reinvention. I gotta tell you, lately it's become, even I have two boys, and even they go, Dad, it's kind of tough to explain to people what we really do, because every time we think we know, you're off doing something slightly different. So I said, you know what? Just anchor your around the fact that I've been, I guess, somewhat of a career consultant,
Yes.
and then the rest of it just kind of falls around it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's big enough. That's specific enough. That's vague enough. That's all we need.
You have to remember, in our, people of Indian origin diaspora, right?
Yeah.
Those The vagueness doesn't really work well,
Yeah.
right? You're supposed to have that, well,
Yes.
exactly, where everybody knows, and you go boom, and it's like, no, didn't go down that route. But it's fun.
Yes.
It's fun, and hopefully it'll continue to be fun.
I'm sure it will. Sumantra, thank you so much for making the time. This has been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to continuing this relationship of you giving and I taking. And hopefully one day I'm able to give something back. And, we'll continue this, have you come back here in your reinvented self and have another talk with our audience.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Nitin. Take care. Bye.